I'm Lizzie, and today I'm going to show you set 3 of the multifunction dies. So this is going to make 3 different drawstring bags here. So the first one is the drawstring drum bag, like that. That's fabulous, isn't it? It's nice and big and roomy. So that's the first one. The second one is the fabric storage basket. And that's this one here. Now that's going to be really useful. And you can put some really fancy fabric in there. I think that's absolutely gorgeous. The one that we're going to make today is this one. And this one is called the Cylindrical carry bag. And that's this one here. It's got a zip all the way around. It's got a carry handle. It's got a drawstring inside as well. So great for security. Plenty of room for all your bits and bobs, whether it's holidays or whether it's just for your sewing, whatever. So in the packet, you're going to get all the dies that you need. These are multimedia dies, so you know they're thicker dies. They're going to cut multiple layers of fabric and wadding and stabilizer. You're also getting full instructions, all the names to the dies and what sizes they are and what sizes you need to cut, and obviously this wonderful online video. So if I show you the back, you can see all the different dies there, and they're all labelled. So in the instructions, when it says a certain die, you refer to this and it will actually tell you which one you should be picking up. So it's fully comprehensive, fabulous. So that's set 3. So I'm going to do a bit of cutting. Now I'll just pop these out of the way. Aren't they lovely? Love the fabric. Right, so we've got a couple of different ways of cutting. We've got a half die. So this is the circular bit. This is the base and the top, and that's really easy to cut. So I'll show you that one. We've then got the little zip ends, if you like, and they're again lovely and easy to cut. And I'll see if I can get it on a plate with something else. And then we've got the handle. Now the handle, there's 2 parts to this. There's one that's stabilised, so that's your outer, but this one is stabilised. And we need to cut it with this die here. Whoops, this die here. And it has different tabs and different areas, so it tells you exactly how to place your fabric. But I'm going to do it so you can see. And it tells you it needs to be 7 inches long. So we're going to make sure that we do that and make sure we get this correct. So bring in your plates. Here we go. So it's the same sandwich as normal. So that's the Gemini, and it's the clear, metal, fabric and dye, opaque and clear. So that's pretty standard. So I need 2 circles from my lining fabric. So don't forget, if you're having to fold your fabric, because we're cutting 2, we'll do 2 and then we'll do 2 more because this has got wadding on. Just do 1 piece at a time. Get them so they're sitting over the top of each other. And again, just use a little bit of tape to perhaps hold these down. So you're putting the edges here and here against the fold. So your folds would be here. So you're putting the edges against that. So we're just going to offer that up, put a bit of tape on. It just holds it all in place. You don't want it to wriggle because you may have to cut it again. So it's always best to tape if you can. So we'll put our other plates on top, pop it through the Gemini, just square up your ends and pop it through. Now with the other set of circles we're going to cut, they have stabiliser and wadding as well. So I think I'll do 1 at a time. You can try and see if you can cut 2 at a time. There's no reason why not. There we go. So there's our first lot of circles cut. Just got a little bit of tape to remove. And there we are. They've kind of stuck together. But there's our circles there. So pop those to one side. I've got covered in tape. There we go. Let's take that off. So there's our scrappy pieces. Now you can be a little bit more frugal than me. And then with this one, I've got the wadding and I've got the stabiliser as well. So again, another couple of pieces of tape. Just use our machine to hold them. And again, these go So you're just popping the edge of that die about 1 or 2 millimetre over that fold. That means it's going to cut beautifully. It's so easy when you have dies to cut your fabric with because of the accuracy and the speed. I just love the accuracy myself. You can hear the machine scrumbling away, but you know it's going to cut it beautifully. And of course those dies are made to go through multiple layers like this. So it makes your job really easy. Even if you were to hand cut these circles, I think they probably wouldn't be as perfect as being die cut. So there we are. So I'll just take the tape off again. I have been known to stitch this tape into bags. Right, so that's one circle. So we'll just do the other. Again, just fold that in half. Got a bit of tape there, let's get it, that's it. So then the other piece we're going to cut is the handle, which is really handy to have the handle, isn't it? That would be handy if you're going on your holidays and you've got lots of things to carry. You've got that handle there. Perhaps one of the children would carry it, one of the grandchildren. Right, so pop that through. So with the next pass through the machine, I'm going to cut the handle and I'll cut the zip tabs as well. And this is the great thing about dies of this size. You can get more than one on your plates at the same time. There we go. Oh, one little thread there. There we go. Pop that to one side, so we don't need that die anymore. So with this one, let's put our tabs down first. So don't forget, even small pieces, I tend to still put them on separately. I think I've folded that the right way, yep. So we'll just use a little tape to hold that. So just place one over the other. Get them lined up. It's quite a big bit of tape for that really, but it won't move. So with this one, I know that the length of my handles need to be 7 inches. So I've got this roughly cut to shape. So the idea is that you put your cutting edge, and I'm going to turn this around so you can see. So the cutting edge just goes close to the top of your fabric there, and you know that's going to cut that. So when this die finishes down here, it's not going to cut anymore. So enable us to cut the whole thing, I'm just going to fold that up. And then I know that all of that's going to be cut, but that top edge, it's just that fabric there. Now I've got 2 layers sitting there, so I'm going to leave it as it is, just for speed. And again, I do like, especially with these dies, I do like to tape these. So again, I'll just lay these on top of each other. Now, like I said, one of these is actually stabilised and one is just the plain fabric. So line them up, lift your die up and just fold that all under. Make sure it's all lovely and parallel. Just stick it down. Easy as that. Pop it into the machine. Square your plates up. There we go. So now we're cutting 2. And to be honest, there was room to cut more, but I don't have any more to cut. So I'll just take those off the plate. Okay, so there's our zip tabs. just one little tiny snip of a thread. Even with taping, sometimes they wriggle a bit. So we've got two little zip tabs there. I'm going to keep them beautifully folded. So I'll keep those there. Put that die away. And in the pack comes a piece of a sheet with really great bits of stickiness on. So you just pop them back on that and they'll always be there for you. So I'll just take this away. I don't need that again. So there are my two pieces, beautifully cut. Perfect. Perfect. So now I'm just going to measure. I'm measuring those at 8 inches, so I'll probably trim those back when I'm ready and good to go with stitching. So let's move the Gemini die cutting machine out of the way, and I'm going to bring in my sewing machine. So the first thing we need to do is to get our zip, which is over here. Now the zip needs to be at least 24.5, 25 inches long, and I've cut mine longer, I always do. So that's 24, well, 24, 25, 26, 27, at least 29 inches long, because I like to move the zip slider out of the way. But in this instance, we're going to put tabs on the end, so I do need to be accurate. So I'm going to put these on first. So all you need to do is open up your little piece. So if I put it here, you'll be able to see. So you can see it's beautifully cut. And I love the fact we've got that crease already. So all you're going to do is fold 1/4 inch over one side, finger press, or you can get your iron in, fold the other side, again finger press. Then all you're going to do is pop the end of your zip in. Now you could put your zip right up to that crease line, but I like to bring mine back a little bit because we're going to stitch this in a second into the bag itself. So I'm moving it back a bit. So that's where I'm going to stitch it. And all I'm going to do is bring that over and encase that zip end in that zip tab. It doesn't have to be right in the middle. So now I'm just going to put a clip there to hold. And then I'm going to measure. So we said 24.5. So that's 12. That's 24. So half is there. So I'll trim that away. I do always like to have a longer zip. Because we have zip on the roll, you've got all that zippage to play with, all that spare zip. And so I tend to utilise it. So again, just folding over that 1/4 inch. I'm just going to put my zip in there and encase it. Just hold all those layers together. And then just pop a clip in. So all I'm going to do now is just stitch right across there just to hold that together. So I'll just bring my sewing machine in. I've got my regular foot on. The next thing we'll do is use the zipper foot, but at the moment just the regular foot is fine. So I'm doing it so I can see the teeth of my zip. So just be careful as you stitch over that. So start from one end. Don't need to backstitch. And just go all the way across. Use the needle down facility if you have one. And just be careful, like I say, when you go over those teeth. You should be fine because they're nylon teeth. If you were to use a metal tooth zip, I would be ultra careful with that. I would definitely hand crank my way across or even skip a little piece of it. So trim the threads. So I've stitched one, so you can see how that looks. Nice and neat. So now we're going to stitch the other end. So again, it's just slipped out, so we'll pop that back in. Just start off the edge of the zip and then just take it across. There we go. Now all of these zip edges, these tabs, they're all going to be stitched into a seam very shortly, so I wouldn't worry too much about that, but they look really lovely and neat, both ends now, with a zip tab on, like that. Really lovely. So this is what they'll look like, really lovely. So the next thing you're going to do is bring in the lower panel, which is the really long big piece. This is your outer fabric and the lower part of the bag. And on here, this has already been stabilised and it's got the wadding on it as well. So the first thing we're going to do is stitch the zip to that. So if you remember before, when we've done stitching of zips, what you're going to do is put the right side to the right side of the zip. So let's do that now. And you're going to take that right up to the edge. So if we have a look at that, we just move that zipper out the way. So your sandwich is literally the raw edge of your outer panel goes up to the edge of your zipper tab. You just match those up together. And you're going to change to your zipper foot now. And then in a moment, we're going to put the upper panel on, which is the thinner strip. So we'll do this one first. So we'll bring in the sewing machine. And need to change to the zipper foot. So you start from the raw edge, right from that edge. Well, I'm going to take my clip out of the way. Now at first you won't be able to feel your zip, but if you put your finger down about 1/2 inch or so, you'll be able to feel it on the end there. So you can keep your zipper foot well away. So now we're away. So now we're attaching the lower panel, the big lower panel, to the zip. So just coming to the end now, I will give that a little back stitch. There we go. Okay, so that's 1/2 done. So that's our lower panel now attached. So now we're going to actually stitch the upper panel, which is a really narrow piece. So we're now going to stitch that on there. So same as before, right side down onto the right side of your zip. The raw edge right up against the folded edge of the zip tab there. And again, just be careful when you first start off, because you've got no zip there until you get to the tape. So now we're away, we can feel that fine. And of course you might want to pin this or use your quilting clips to hold all this in place. Just make sure your ends meet, and like I say, you can always trim. So we're coming near to the slider. We're a little way away, but I'm going to move it now. Just going to move my needle up out of my work a little bit. I'm going to move my slider all the way along. There we go. Just give it a wriggle. Just make sure the edges of your panel match the edges of the zipper tape. Little back stitch there. And I just need to trim my panel away just 1/2 inch, which is fine. So now we've got our zip installed into our outer of the bag. So all we're going to do now is bring those two short ends together and stitch from the top to the bottom, from there to there, to make a cylinder. And then I'll trim my zip tabs. So change back to a regular foot. Line them all up. So let's trim those tabs now. So you can see what I mean now. If you don't quite place those tabs right in the centre, it matters not because you're cutting them away. But it's nice to have that flexibility. So again, about 1/4 inch. We always say in the instructions 1/4 inch to give you some sort of guidance. So just match up your seams as best you can. You could try nesting them, or you can have them all going the same way. I might have them all going the same way. So don't forget all those layers now. So hopefully if you moved your zip along, you've got no zips to go over. Just go carefully though. It might say, look, it just caught the zip there. I'm just going to move it along a fraction. It's fine now. So just be careful. Just be guided by your machine. There we are, it's fine. All the way down the bottom. I'll give that a back stitch. So there we are. Let's just trim those threads. So that's our zip installed. And we've also made the outer bag body. Doesn't it look amazing? Look at the colours. Now see how those zip tabs work. It kind of gives you a nice neat finish at the end of your seams there. And of course our zip is going to go all the way across and open up. And I think that probably could do with a top stitch. So now we move on to the next stage. So I've top stitched my zip in place. It looks absolutely awesome. So I'll keep it there for the moment. So the next thing we need to do is to put the base, the round base, onto our cylinder. So once we've joined the side seam up, we've got a lovely cylinder shape. Now, what I suggest you do is fold your piece in half and give it a little clip there. Or you could use a pen and make a little line, but I put a little clip. So we know that's the halfway point. We can do the same with our circle. In actual fact, it's got the line from when we cut it with the dies, but I'll do it anyway. So I'll cut a little point out of that, and that gives us that little notch. So all I would do now is to match the notches up. So just sort of opening that up, right sides together, and match those notches, and that gives you a really good head start. And put a clip in. Now take your base to the other side, so I can see where the die, this is why it's so useful when you're die cutting, because you can see that fold line. So that fold line there is going to go up to my seam line on the opposite side. And put a clip in. So now all we need to do is to make sure that our base goes all the way round our cylinder. So I'd find around about the 1/4 mark, like that, and clip. Same again. So it's about there. And when I say about, it sounds bad, but I can move this around. You could always fold it again and put another notch in. So look, now we've got our 1/4 points, and that's fitting beautifully. So now all I'm going to do is put my other clips in just to hold. You can use pins if you want to. Now I would put the straight edge against the circle. So in other words, the circle underneath and my straight edge of the panel on top facing me. So there's our base clipped in place. All I need to do is run that under the machine. Just before I do that, let me just talk you through the next stage as well. So the next stage is that we are going to do the same to the top. So in other words, we'll put the round base on the top part of the bag, but before we do that we need to do the handle. So I thought I might as well do that now. So I've cut my pieces down, I checked my instructions, it's 7.5 inches. So I just need to do right sides together, says my gorgeous fabric, my Be Happy fabric, and I'm going to stitch all the way round and leave a little turning gap, and then I'm going to turn it through, give it a press, and then I'm going to attach it to the top part of my my bag there. So I'm going to do that first, just so that job's out of the way. So if you start about 2 inches from the corner, got my regular foot back on the machine, do a back stitch, all the way round. Just make sure your edges are lined up. I have to say, because it's been die cut, they always are. Just get to that last corner there. And let's have a look at our gap. About there, be fine. So just get my scissors. So just trim your threads. Cut your corners off. Mind your stitches. And turn through. We left a nice big turning gap here, so it's easy. Again, just get your pokey tool in there, whatever that is. We have all got our special ones that we use. Just poke out your corners. There we go. And again, this would be nice in contrasting fabric actually, wouldn't it? The handle. There we go. And you could top stitch all of this, that would look awesome. But just for speed, I'm just going to close my gap. Do you know, I've said that, and I think I might top stitch. So I'm going to start from the corner. I'm going about 1/8 of an inch in. My needle's going to go down just to hold that. I'm going to fold over my edges. There we go. It just makes a really nice professional finish when you top stitch. And then when you put this onto the bag lid, you could just follow where you top stitched. I'm just going to go over my stitches that I started with instead of a back stitch, otherwise we end up with too much thread in the same place. So there we are. So now I'm going to attach my handle to my top part. There we go. So we need to make a bit of a loop. And if you look at the instructions, it will tell you exactly where to place this. And so I'm just going to top stitch. I'm going to do a back stitch to hold, but I'm top stitching over the top of my top stitch. But you could do like a boxy finish. So there's one side done. So I'm just going to lift that up. You get a really lovely handle effect there. So just lining that up. Nice back stitch. This is going to take a little bit of weight maybe. You know, you could make one of these for your holidays and put the children's toys in it. That would be nice. It's funny, as you make things, you have ideas of what it could be used for. So trim all your threads. We better do inside as well. Okay. So that's all that done. So that's ready to go on the other side, just as we did before. Let's do it right sides together. And so all I would do there is exactly the same. So all I'm going to do now is just go round and stitch this bit here, and then I'll put the other side on and stitch that. So there's my base in place. So I'm going to do exactly the same with the other side. So I'm going to find the middle again. So think about where your handle's going to go. So this is obviously the back of the bag here. So you need your handle to go across. So that way, let's have a look at the original sample. If you have a look. So that's where the zips go and your handle is going across. Sometimes easier to see the finished sample, isn't it? So let's think about that. So there's our halfway point. So I'll give that a little cut. So I'm going to marry that up to my seam. And then on the other side, again, just going to bring those together. Should have done that at the same time. There we go. Cut a little notch. Bring that over. Little notch. It's just easier. I find it easier just to do the notches. So just marry those up again, put a clip in, and then just find your quarter points again. There we go. So I won't worry about the ones in between because I know that's going to fit perfectly. So now I'm just going to stitch around there. Right, so there we are. And I did remember to open my zip. So I can pull that through now. Let's see what it looks like. I think this will be fine as it is. And if you want to snip all the way around that base and the top, obviously you can. So there we are, that's going to sit proud like that. Needs an iron. There we go. Now we've got the shape. How about that? So it's getting there, isn't it? Let's just close it. It needs a bit of a pull about, it needs a press, it needs the lining being put in. But there's our basic shape done now. Isn't that fabulous? It's going to be such a lovely, lovely bag when it's done. And of course that just flaps open like that. So now we've got to do the lining and we've got to do the drawstring. Let me show you inside the one that's been made. And you can see what you're aiming for. This has had a good press. So look at that. So inside, we've got the drawstring. So all of that is what we're going to do next. So now it's come to do the drawstring part. So I've got 4 pieces for this. So take 2 pieces right side together. I've chose a complementary fabric, I couldn't resist. So 2 pieces together and you're going to stitch both ends, both short ends to make a cylinder. And you're going to do that with both pieces. I'm going to do a back stitch, habit of a lifetime. Now all of these things that I'm doing, you've noticed I'm not ironing or pressing a thing, but I really like it if you did. But I'm trying to get this basics done for you so you can make it. So I'm trying not to be slow. So there's one piece done. So we might as well just chain stitch this. Or chain piece it. Don't forget your back stitch though, just to make sure those threads don't come undone. I mean, we're not putting this under a huge amount of pressure, but it helps. So just pull that around and do that last short end. There we go. Lovely. Trim your threads, keep it tidy. There we go, not too bad. So now you're going to put right sides together and you're going to stitch all the way around both pieces. So let's just, always have to think about this. Turn one right side through and pop it inside the other. So you're putting those 2 cylinders together. I'll show you, I'll just get this straightened up. So those seams are nesting. So let me just pop a clip in there. So let's give it a finger press and it will stay better for me to show you. So you're putting those two pieces together, right sides together, and you're nesting those seams, and you'll have two of those, obviously, either side. So there's the first one. If I swing that around, there's the second one. So I've nested that. I'll pop a clip in there just to hold it. So you're going to stitch all the way round. So it's really nice and easy. Little back stitch. Loving this fabric. And this is our Be Happy fabric. And because you've die cut these, you know they're going to fit absolutely 100%. So just bring those round. Just make sure your raw edges meet. Okay. So now you've stitched all the way around the top there. So we're just going to turn it through. And ideally you're going to press this. I think I'll top stitch it though. Excuse me, licking my fingers. I'm going to top stitch it. Gives a lovely professional finish. Now obviously you might want to use the correct colour fabric and colour thread. So I'm top stitching. Actually it looks rather nice with the white. Well, it's like an off-white. I use it for everything. And they say either an off-white or a grey is a good thread to always have in your stash because it kind of goes with everything. So I have a drawer full of cream thread, and I'm not joking. So just make sure your edges are beautiful. So you might wonder how you're going to put your drawstring in there, but we're actually going to open up one of the seams. So don't do a back stitch on this one, just go straight over those last the first couple of stitches that you made, just go over those and that should be fine. I'm loving the white stitching on this now. Okay, so that's gone all the way around. Now if you look in your instructions it will tell you how far down to do that second line, because we need to do a line around about here to do our channel for the drawstring. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And I'll use a guide on my machine. I'm going to take this off, make it free arm. And I'm going to use the edge of where my bobbin case is. I'm going to start at the seam, just make sure those are nice and flat. Do one back stitch. And I'm just going to use that as my guide. So I'm actually not looking at the needle at all. I'm just looking at this little black piece on my machine. That's always a good tip to do that. Or you could put a piece of tape on your machine and then you can put your fabric against the tape. So like I say, I'm not looking at the needle at all. And look, we come straight back to where we were. Fabulous. So there's our channel made, ready for our cord, which we'll do in a little while. Just trim my threads again. Right, there we go. Now, I've already done the lining. Now, the lining is exactly the same as the other part of the bag, where you put the circle into the main piece. And obviously, you remember we did that little clip. So do exactly the same again, that little notch on maybe 2 points or 4 points, and then put your panel on and stitch it. And that's your lining complete. Well, now what you have to do is attach your drawstring piece to your lining. So don't forget it's right sides together. So this is my right side on the outside. So I'm literally going to open this up. And I have to say you could stay stitch all these pieces together. So I'm just going to put one of the seams with one of the seams of the, so one of the seams of the panel to the seams of the drawstring, and then I know that's exactly in the right place, and then all the rest will just fit beautifully. So don't forget right sides together. So when we stitch it, that will be part of the lining. It's very clever. So I'm literally going to pop that round my machine now. So I'll start where the clip is. About 1/4 inch again. And if you want to, again, you can put your notches in. So we're just going to go for it. Depends how confident you are. To come all the way round. Just make sure all those raw edges are lined up together, and then just come round to the other side. There we go. And just keep checking your measurements, making sure everything fits together beautifully. So there we are. That's our drawstring piece in place. Not easy for me to say. And of course that's got to go on the outside. That's it. There we go. So that's how that goes into the bag now. But of course we need to put our second piece in, which is the upper panel. So I'm going to go away and prepare that for you now. So now I'm ready to put the upper panel on the drawstring part. Let me show you what that looks like, because it's much easier to see when it's done. So if I pop that in, if you have, let's bring it over here. So it's this part here, this part. So this is the drawstring that we've just done. And now we're attaching this upper panel here. So let's pop that to one side. Let's get it right out of the way. So this time I'm going to leave the end of my panel open, because then I can just adjust it as I go along. So I'm going to leave about 1 inch. So what you're doing, you're following your original stitching that you just did on your drawstring. So I've got the wrong side facing me. I've got the seam facing me here. So all the raw edges are here, and this is the stitching that I just did. So I'm actually stitching over the top of that. So it's right sides together. So I'm doing a good 1/4 inch now, just to make sure I'm covering my original stitching. I mean, if you're at all worried, go from the other side and then you can actually see the stitching. And if you do see the stitching, all is not lost. Really, it's not. So just taking this all the way around. And this makes a really lovely, neat finish. we're just coming back to where we started. And do you remember I said I'd leave that end open because I just want to show you a little trick. Well, sometimes good for little tricks. So I started about an inch away, so you can see there, that's where I started. I didn't do a back stitch. And there's the end, and I knew it was going to be just a little bit bigger than I needed it to be. But if I offer up those two ends there, you can see that that's where I'd need to do the seam. So I'm actually going to stitch that together now, trim it back, and then just finish my circle. And I find that an easy way to make sure that it fits absolutely perfectly. If you're not sure about what I just said, rewind me. So a little back stitch. Just going to trim that away. And then complete my circle. I can open that up and complete it. That's just about right. There we are. So there's our upper panel in place now. Oh, got some threads. So there's our drawstring bit. It'll all make sense once you start seeing it in the flesh, so to speak. And then you've got, and that'll all draw up. And then you've got this little piece here that you now need to stitch onto the zip. So if I get my bag, which is here, it looked like it was already finished. And pop that inside. Then all I need to do is neaten that off. Now I've stitched that upper panel in place, we can see how it looks. So there's your drawstring, and that goes into the middle of the bag. And make sure that you put the wrong side of your lining to the wrong side of your bag. And then all you're going to do is, if you have a look at this, now you could hand stitch this. I think I'd quite like to do that, but top stitch it as well. All you're going to do is fold over your top panel by 1/4 inch, and then you can top stitch it to your zip. Let me just pin that and clip that in place so you can see what I mean. It's quite nice to see that the drawstring fabric is a different colour. It makes it a little bit clearer. So I'll do 2 or 3 clips so we can see. There we go. So on that part there, you're actually going to top stitch that to the zip there, and your drawstring tucks then right into the centre. Now what I've done is I've opened up one of the seams, this seam here, ready to put the drawstring in. So that's all you need to do. Get your quick unpick and just unpick it. And I've put that opening, if you like, to the back of the bag. So if I get my safety pin, well, it's a quilting clip actually, and see if I can get a decent length of cord. I've probably got far too much. Just give that a trim. We can see what that looks like. And then you're just literally threading it through. So don't forget you've got some seams in here. You've got like the other seam on the other side, and you've got the other seam when you come right back to the beginning. You've got another seam to go through, but it should be dead easy. But just be aware. So we just try and do this really quickly. I didn't need to sing then, did I? So pop that through. Loving this fabric. Sorry if I keep saying that. And yeah, so you could top stitch that with the machine, that upper panel, onto where your zip is, I just showed you. Or you could glue it, or you could hand stitch it, or you could machine stitch it. And if you wanted to make it really super easy and fun, you could actually use quilting tape to actually stick it together first. So let's get some of this cord through. It's got stuck somewhere. I might be sitting on the cord. I think that's what it is. So I'm just coming through to the front now. So you've got that seam there. So just be aware of that. So there's the pin coming out now. Oh, I've lost an end somewhere. Right, let's not worry about that. So I'll cut myself a fair length. There we go. And then all you're going to do is knot those ends. I mean, you could knot them two together, so you're going to drawstring that up, or you could knot them individually. On the one that we made, if if you have a quick look, we kept them quite short, so you can have them as long as you like. We put 2 little knots on the end, and that saves them getting lost. And of course, then they tuck in really nicely. So I'm just going to go away, find my end and poke it through again. Now I've put my cord through. I've got quite long ends. I quite like my ends long, only because then I'm not going to lose them. I'm loving the white and the yellow together. Doesn't it look gorgeous? So I've put my cord through. There's my drawstring. It's all working beautifully. The inside is looking as gorgeous as the outside. And also, if you remember, let me just tuck this in. Look at that. Ooh, delicious. So if you remember, so all I said to you was just fold over your top panel by 1/4 inch. And I've just put clips on there just so you can see. You can machine stitch this, but I think I'll go away and actually stitch this by hand. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And so then when it comes to the lid, you know what? We've done this now 3 times. So all you're going to do is take your panel upper and your lid, and you're going to stitch your panel to your lid, and you're going to do exactly what we've done here. You're going to turn over 1/4 inch and you're going to stitch it to the zip, and then you're done. If we have a look at the original one here, it's this bit. So it's just a case of either machining or hand stitching that lining to the zip. And that's how it's finished. It's so easy, absolutely gorgeous. So we've got 2 very, very nice drawstring bags here, if I can get mine to stay still. And I think you're going to make loads.